The vast emptiness of space stretched out before the viewports of the Star Seeker, the lead scout vessel of the Xylar Alliance's 7th Reconnaissance Fleet. Lieutenant Zara, the sensor technician, stifled a yawn as she monitored the routine scan results. The dark rim had proven to be precisely what everyone expected: empty, cold, and uneventful. 3 weeks into their patrol mission, the crew had settled into a comfortable monotony. Admiral Kalen stood on the command deck of the flagship Vigilance, reviewing the latest reports from the scout vessels. Tall and imposing with slate-gray skin and penetrating golden eyes, he embodied the disciplined precision the Xylar Alliance valued. The Alliance, a confederation of 17 spacefaring species united by shared principles of exploration, knowledge sharing, and non-interference, had existed for over 2 millennia. Their technological advancement had allowed them to explore and map vast regions of the galaxy, always adhering to strict protocols regarding contact with pre-FTL civilizations. Admiral, his communications officer called, the Star Seeker is requesting an immediate, secure channel. Kalen frowned. Scout ships rarely requested priority communications during routine patrols. Put them through. Captain Nilith's face appeared on the screen, her normally composed features tense. Admiral, we've detected an anomaly. An unidentified vessel just appeared at the edge of our sensor range, traveling at near FTL speeds. Origin? Kalen asked, his voice measured despite the sudden alertness that coursed through him. Unknown, sir. It emerged from deeper within the dark rim. No identification signal, and its configuration doesn't match anything in our database. The Dark Rim was supposed to be devoid of advanced civilizations. That was why the Alliance had designated it a long-term exploration zone. Any spacefaring presence here was unexpected and concerning. Maintain distance and continue observation, Kalen ordered. Send all sensor data directly to the Vigilance. Sir, there's more, Nilith added, her voice dropping. The vessel has just changed course. It's heading straight for us. Aboard the Star Seeker, the bridge crew watched in tense silence as the unidentified vessel grew larger on their viewing screens. Its design was unlike anything in Alliance records, angular and utilitarian, with visible weapon ports along its hull. Battle scars marked its dark exterior, evidence of previous conflicts. Attempt communication on all standard frequencies, Captain Nilith ordered. Use the universal greeting protocols. Communications Officer Tarek worked quickly, sending out the carefully designed first contact messages the Alliance had refined over centuries. No response, Captain. I've tried all frequencies and protocols. It's scanning us, Lieutenant Zara reported suddenly, her voice rising. Unknown energy signature. Our sensors are... The ship's lights flickered, and several consoles temporarily went dark before emergency systems engaged. Report, Nilith demanded. Some kind of energy pulse, Zara explained as systems gradually came back online. It temporarily disrupted our sensor array and secondary systems. They're probing our defenses. On the Vigilance, Admiral Kalen watched the sensor data with growing concern. Analysis showed that the unidentified vessel carried power sources far exceeding what should be necessary for a ship of its size. The weapon emplacements were numerous and of unfamiliar design, but clearly meant for combat. This was no pirate vessel or lost explorer. All ships, yellow alert, he commanded. Defensive formation Delta. Weapon systems on standby, but do not target unless directly fired upon. We follow Alliance engagement protocols. The fleet moved with practiced precision, the 6 vessels arranging themselves in a protective formation. Alliance protocol was clear. Peaceful intentions must be demonstrated first, force used only in self-defense, and even then, with measured restraint. As the fleet settled into formation, a transmission finally came through, a short, text-only message in a language so ancient it took the translation systems several minutes to process. When it finally appeared on the main screen, a stunned silence fell across the command deck. This is Warship UNS Defiance. You are trespassing in sovereign Earth space. Withdraw immediately or face consequences. The officers exchanged bewildered glances. Earth? The legendary homeworld of humans, a species believed to have either gone extinct or retreated into obscurity millennia ago. The history banks contained only fragments about them, a violent, self-destructive species, yet remarkably resilient and innovative. "Sir," his science officer said quietly, "if this is truly a human vessel, it contradicts everything we know about their species. They weren't supposed to have achieved FTL travel before their civilization collapsed." "Admiral," Kalen stared at the message, the implications racing through his mind. This wasn't just an unexpected contact. It was potentially a historical revelation. And the humans, if that's who they were, had opened communication with a threat. "Send a response," he ordered. Standard diplomatic greeting. "Inform them we are a peaceful exploration fleet of the Xylar Alliance, with no hostile intent. Request clarification on their territorial claim in what our records show as unexplored space." The message was transmitted, and the bridge crew waited. The unknown vessel, the Defiance, maintained its position, weapon ports visible but inactive. Minutes stretched into an hour with no response. "Sir," Captain Nileth suggested over the comm, "with your permission, I'd like to deploy a small probe. We could gather more detailed information about the vessel without approaching directly." Kalen hesitated. Alliance protocols encouraged gathering information, but the humans had already demonstrated hostility. Still, a passive probe posed minimal threat. "Proceed with caution, Captain. Keep the probe on a predictable trajectory, clearly separate from weapon systems." The Starseeker launched a small, unmanned probe toward the Defiance. Everyone watched as it slowly approached the human vessel, sensors gathering data about its composition, energy outputs, and technology level. When the probe crossed an invisible threshold approximately 2 kilometers from a Defiance, everything changed. Without warning, the human ship fired a series of kinetic projectiles with terrifying precision. They didn't hit the probe directly. Instead, they created a pattern that forced it to either retreat or be destroyed. "Pull the probe back immediately," Kalen ordered. This demonstration of weapons capability was deliberate, a warning shot that showed both restraint and extraordinary targeting ability. As the probe returned to the Starseeker, the senior officers gathered in the Vigilance Strategy Room to discuss the situation. Opinions were divided. "We should withdraw," argued Commander Voss, head of security. "They've made their position clear, and we're not prepared for a military engagement. Retreating without understanding the situation could be dangerous," countered Science Officer Lyra. "If humans have established a significant presence in the Dark Rim, the Alliance needs to know." "They fired on our probe," Voss insisted. "Warning shots only," Lyra noted. "They could have destroyed it, but chose not to." Admiral Kalen listened to the debate, weighing each perspective. "We will maintain position, but increase defensive readiness. Continue attempts at communication." "Admiral," the tactical officer interrupted over the comm system. "The human vessel is moving." On the main viewer, they watched as the Defiance suddenly accelerated to an astounding speed, heading directly toward the Xylar formation. Alliance vessels raised shields and prepared weapon systems according to defensive protocols. But what happened next astonished everyone. Instead of attacking, the Defiance executed a series of maneuvers that should have been impossible for a vessel of its size. Tight turns, rapid acceleration and deceleration, and precision movements that spoke of incredible engineering and piloting skill. It weaved through the Xylar formation without firing a single shot. As it passed, however, it released several small devices that detonated in brilliant flashes of energy. Not explosives, but electronic warfare packages that temporarily disrupted communications and targeting systems across half the Xylar fleet. The Defiance came to a stop on the opposite side of the formation, having effectively demonstrated its ability to penetrate their defenses without firing a direct shot. Another message appeared. "Final warning. This territory is protected. Leave." Admiral Kalen stared at the screen, the gravity of the situation fully apparent. This wasn't just an encounter with a lost species. It was a confrontation with a technologically advanced, militarily capable power that had somehow remained hidden from the Alliance. and they were clearly not interested in diplomatic relations. The restoration work on the affected ship systems was proceeding quickly, but the demonstration had made its point. The humans possessed technology that in some ways exceeded Alliance capabilities, particularly in propulsion and electronic warfare. Admiral, Lyra approached him quietly. I've been analyzing the historical records we have on humans. There are references to a catastrophic conflict that drove them from their homeworld. What if they've been hiding in the Dark Rim all this time, rebuilding? Their aggression might come from fear of discovery. Kalen considered this. If humans had suffered a devastating defeat or disaster and retreated to rebuild in secret, their defensive posture made sense. But it didn't explain why they would claim sovereignty over a region so vast and previously unexplored. We need more information, he decided. Prepare a specialized communication using ancient human language structures from the archives. Emphasize our peaceful intentions, but also our unwillingness to blindly retreat without understanding the situation. Lyra worked with the communications team to craft a message that might resonate with human psychology based on historical records. They transmitted it on multiple frequencies, including some that had been in use for centuries. This time, the response came quickly, not text, but an audio transmission. A female voice, weary but commanding. This is Captain Eva Rostova of the United Nations ship Defiance. I am willing to speak, Admiral, but under strict conditions. One unarmed vessel may approach for direct communication. Any suspicious movement will be considered hostile action. A significant concession. Kalen didn't hesitate. I'll go myself, he told his officers, ignoring their protests. This is too important to delegate. Commander Voss, you have temporary command. Maintain position and do not intervene unless our shuttle is directly attacked. He selected Lyra to accompany him for her historical knowledge, along with a single security officer. Their shuttle departed the Vigilance and approached the Defiance slowly, weapons systems completely powered down as a show of good faith. The human vessel was even more impressive up close. Despite its battle-scarred exterior, the engineering was remarkable. Elegant solutions to complex problems, different from Alliance approaches but equally sophisticated. The shuttle was guided into a small docking bay where armed personnel awaited them. The human crew were a startling sight, similar in basic form to several Alliance species, but distinctly unique. They appeared tense and vigilant, wearing well-maintained but clearly aged uniforms. Each carried personal weapons, and their expressions were guarded. Captain Rostova herself met them at the airlock, a woman of medium height with close-cropped gray hair and piercing blue eyes that conveyed both intelligence and exhaustion. Deep lines marked her face, speaking of years of stress and responsibility. Admiral Kalen, she said without preamble, welcome aboard the Defiance. Follow me. She led them through corridors that revealed much about human priorities. The ship was old but meticulously maintained. Crew quarters were Spartan, while engineering sections and weapons systems received obvious priority in resource allocation. This was a society on a war footing, or at least one that remembered war vividly. The bridge was compact and efficient, populated by a small crew who watched the Xylar visitors with undisguised suspicion. Rostova gestured toward a small conference room adjacent to the bridge. We can speak privately here, she said once they were seated. I'll be direct, Admiral. Your presence here represents a significant security concern for us. The Dark Rim has been our refuge for centuries, and we've gone to great lengths to keep it that way. Captain, Kalen replied carefully, until today, the Alliance had no knowledge of human presence in this region, or indeed, anywhere in the galaxy. Historical records suggested your species had either perished or retreated after some catastrophic event. A bitter smile crossed Rostova's face. Not entirely inaccurate. We didn't disappear, we withdrew. By choice, after a devastating war with an enemy you've never encountered. We've spent generations rebuilding in the shadows, always vigilant against discovery. This enemy, Lyra asked, do they still exist? We believe so, Rostova answered grimly. The Vaktar. a machine intelligence that seeks to either assimilate or destroy all organic life. They nearly succeeded with us. Earth fell. Our colonies were systematically targeted. What remained of humanity retreated to the darkest corners of the galaxy to heal and prepare. And the Defiance? Kayla inquired. One of our forward patrol vessels. We monitor the boundaries of our recovery space, ensuring our new colonies remain undetected while our population and industrial capacity rebuild. The implications were enormous. An unknown hostile force powerful enough to defeat an FTL-capable human civilization, potentially still active somewhere in the galaxy. A human remnant, hidden but clearly advanced, rebuilding in secret. Captain, Kalen began, the Alliance would. He was interrupted by a harsh alarm. Rostova immediately moved to a communication panel where a crew member delivered an urgent report. Her expression darkened as she turned back to the Xyler delegation. Multiple unidentified vessels approaching from deeper in the rim. Not yours. Her tone made it clear she already suspected the answer. No, Kalen replied firmly. Our entire presence in this region is what you've already seen. Rostova's hand moved to her weapon as she studied his face, searching for deception. Long-range sensors detect at least 12 vessels. Configuration unknown, but she hesitated. Energy signatures are consistent with historical records of Vaktar technology. She issued rapid orders to her crew, then fixed Kalen with an accusing stare. Is this a trap, Admiral? Did your presence here somehow alert them? I assure you, Captain, we had no knowledge of either human presence or these Vaktar until today, Kalen responded, maintaining his composure despite the implied threat. But if a hostile force approaches, perhaps we should consider a temporary alliance. Rostova's expression remained hard as she evaluated the situation. Return to your shuttle, she finally said. I need to consult with my command. Don't attempt to leave the area. Our defensive systems will consider it hostile action. Back aboard the shuttle, Kalen immediately contacted the Vigilance. Status report? Our long-range sensors have detected multiple vessels approaching from deeper in the rim, Commander Voss confirmed. Unknown configuration, but significant energy outputs. They'll reach our position in approximately 3 hours. Alert the fleet. Battle stations, but maintain position. Kalen turned to Lyra. What do you make of this? The science officer looked troubled. If Captain Rostova is telling the truth about these Vaktar, we may be facing a serious threat. Nothing in our records mentions such an entity, but we've never extensively explored this region. And the humans? Their behavior is consistent with a species recovering from near extinction, Lyra observed. The paranoia, the military readiness, the hidden settlements. They're survivors, Admiral. A communication from the Defiance interrupted them. Rostova's face appeared on the small view screen, her expression grave. Admiral, we've confirmed the approaching vessels are Vaktar scout ships. A reconnaissance force, likely sent to investigate unusual energy signatures in the area. Perhaps our confrontation triggered their sensors. She paused. We need to talk. This time, the negotiations included Commander Voss via secure channel, creating a three-way discussion between the Defiance, the shuttle, and the Vigilance. Trust was minimal, but the approaching threat demanded cooperation. Rostova shared tactical data on the Vaktar, information bought with centuries of human blood. They operate as a connected hive, but each ship maintains individual combat capability. Their primary weapons are energy-based, capable of penetrating standard shields. They prefer swarm tactics, overwhelming targets with superior numbers. Our fleet has advanced defensive capabilities, Voss noted, and significant firepower. It won't be enough, Rostova replied bluntly. Not without knowing their weaknesses. Lyra, who had been analyzing the data, spoke up. Your historical records indicate the Vaktar communication network has specific frequency vulnerabilities. If we could disrupt their coordination. Theoretical vulnerabilities, Rostova corrected. We never successfully exploited them during the war. Their adaptive capabilities were too rapid. A tense negotiation followed. Neither side fully trusted the other, but the immediate threat of the Vaktar forced pragmatism. Eventually, they reached an agreement. The Defiance would share tactical information about Vaktar weaknesses and join the battle with its superior maneuverability and targeting systems, while the Xylar fleet would provide defensive support with their numbers and shield technology. One condition, Rostova added firmly. When this is over, if we survive, you leave. The location of our settlements remains secret. Kalen agreed, though questions about the larger implications of human presence and the Vaktar threat remained. For now, survival took precedence over diplomacy. The first engagement began 2 hours later. The Vaktar ships emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, sleek, metallic vessels with pulsing energy signatures. They immediately launched a coordinated attack on both the Xylar fleet and the Defiance. The battle revealed the strengths of both allies. The Defiance demonstrated extraordinary maneuverability, evading Vaktar energy weapons while delivering precise, kinetic strikes that penetrated their defenses. The Xylar vessels formed defensive clusters, their overlapping shields absorbing damage while their weapons provided covering fire. Despite initial success, the battle turned when 3 additional Vaktar vessels appeared. A cruiser from the Xylar fleet, the Sentinel, took heavy damage, its shields failing and hull integrity compromising. In a move that surprised everyone, the Defiance broke formation and accelerated toward the stricken Xylar vessel, placing itself between the Sentinel and the attacking Vaktar ship. Taking damage to its own hull, the human vessel fired a concentrated barrage that destroyed the attacker before escorting the Sentinel back to the defensive perimeter. This sacrifice changed the dynamic between the allies. What had been a pragmatic arrangement became something approaching genuine cooperation as the battle continued. Communications between vessels became more fluid, tactical adjustments more coordinated. Eventually, the Vaktar broke off the attack, retreating to regroup. The victory was temporary. Both the human and Xylar forces had sustained damage, and the enemy would return with greater numbers. During the lull, Kalen and Rostova met again on the Defiance, this time with a different atmosphere. The human captain's suspicion remained, but a grudging respect had developed. Your people fought well, she acknowledged. Better than I expected. As did yours, Kalen replied. That maneuver to protect the Sentinel. Standard procedure, Rostova dismissed, though her crew's expressions suggested otherwise. The Vaktar will return, Admiral, with reinforcements. This was merely a scouting party. As they discussed strategy for the inevitable second attack, Rostova was called away by her communications officer. She returned visibly tense, her previous openness replaced by guarded calculation. Problem, Captain? Kalen inquired. Nothing that concerns you, she replied curtly. Lyra, who had been quietly observing human behavior patterns, recognized the change. You've received new orders, she surmised. From your command. Rostova didn't confirm or deny, but her reaction was answer enough. Something had changed, and not for the better. What the human captain couldn't hide was the conflict evident in her expression. She had received orders, that much was clear, and those orders were troubling her. The temporary alliance that had begun to form was suddenly on uncertain ground. When the Vaktar returned, they came in force. 20 ships, arranged in attack formations that suggested learning from the previous encounter. The human Xylar defense was ready, but even combined, they were outnumbered. The battle was brutal. 3 Xylar vessels were severely damaged in the initial exchange. The Defiance fought brilliantly, but took heavy hits that compromised its maneuverability. The Vaktar pressed their advantage, focusing fire on critical systems. As the situation deteriorated, Lyra made a discovery. Analyzing real-time data from the battle combined with historical records, she identified a potential vulnerability in the Vaktar command structure. Their lead vessel contained a central coordination node. If it could be disabled, the entire Vaktar force might lose cohesion. It would require a direct assault on their command ship, she explained to Kalen and Rostova. Precisely targeted strikes on specific subsystems. Suicide, Rostova stated flatly. Their defensive screen is too strong for a frontal assault. Not necessarily, Kalen countered. If we created a diversion with the remaining Xylar fleet, a single vessel with superior maneuverability might penetrate their defenses. The implication was clear. The Defiance was the only ship with the necessary capabilities. Rostova hesitated, and for the first time, she revealed what troubled her. I have orders, Admiral. If the situation becomes untenable, I'm to deploy the Omega Protocol. Which is? She met his gaze directly. A quantum collapse device. It would destroy everything within this star system. The Vaktar, your fleet, my ship. A last resort to prevent the Vaktar from tracking our settlements. The revelation stunned the Xylar officers. Such a weapon represented both technological advancement beyond Alliance capabilities and a willingness to make devastating sacrifices. And these are your orders now? Kalen asked quietly. The situation qualifies, Rostova confirmed. The risk of Vaktar survival and tracking has exceeded acceptable parameters. Lyra stepped forward. Captain, our plan targets their command structure, the very capability you're concerned about. If successful, it eliminates the need for such a drastic measure. Rostova's internal conflict was visible, duty to her orders and the protection of human settlements versus the emerging trust with these aliens and the moral weight of destroying allies. In that moment, Kalen recognized the parallel between their situations. Both were exploration forces that had encountered something unexpected. Both were making decisions that would affect their respective civilizations. Both were weighing duty against a new possibility. We saved your cruiser, Rostova said finally, almost to herself. You didn't ask why. I assumed tactical necessity, Kalen replied. No. Rostova shook her head. It was a choice. My weapons officer had a clear shot at the Vaktar attacker without endangering ourselves. Protecting your ship was. She hesitated. Instinct. The meaning was clear. Despite centuries of isolation and paranoia, something fundamental remained in human nature, an instinct toward cooperation that had survived their near extinction. What's your decision, Captain? Kalen asked. The Vaktar were pressing their advantage. 2 more Xylar vessels had taken critical damage. The window for action was closing rapidly. We'll try your plan, Rostova decided. The Defiance will target their command ship. Your fleet provides the diversion. She turned to her weapons officer. Prepare all remaining offensive systems. Divert power from life support if necessary. The plan was desperate, but clear. The Xylar fleet would execute a coordinated attack on the Vaktar's flank, drawing attention and fire. Meanwhile, the Defiance, despite its damage, would make a high-speed approach to the command vessel, using its superior targeting systems to strike the coordination node. If we fail, Rostova told Kalen quietly, the Omega Protocol remains an option. We won't fail, he replied with more confidence than he felt. The operation began with the Xylar fleet launching a massive barrage against the Vaktar formation. As expected, the enemy responded with overwhelming force, concentrating their firepower on the attacking vessels. The Defiance, running with minimal power to avoid detection, accelerated from behind the Xylar lines, plotting a course directly toward the Vaktar command ship. Its engines strained against battle damage, and emergency repairs were conducted even as it approached its target. On board, Captain Rostova stood at the tactical station, personally directing the approach. Weapons status? Main kinetic batteries at 64%, her officer reported. Targeting systems functional but degraded. It will have to be enough. The Xylar fleet was taking heavy losses but maintaining the diversion. The Vigilance itself had moved to the front line, drawing Vaktar fire while smaller vessels executed precision strikes to keep the enemy's attention. The Defiance closed on its target, still undetected. At 5,000 kilometers, the Vaktar command ship's sensors finally registered the approach. It began to turn, bringing defensive systems to bear. They've spotted us, Rostova's tactical officer warned. Maintain course. All power to forward shields and weapons. The Defiance absorbed the first hits, its shields draining but holding. At 2,000 kilometers, Rostova gave the order, execute targeting pattern Epsilon. Hit the coordination node. The human vessel unleashed its remaining firepower in a complex pattern designed to overload specific sections of the Vaktar vessel. The precision was extraordinary. Even with damaged systems, the Defiance placed each shot exactly where needed. The Vaktar command ship's defenses faltered. Its energy signature fluctuated as the coordination node took damage. Across the battlefield, the enemy vessel's perfect synchronization began to waver. "One more pass," Rostova ordered. "Divert all remaining power to weapons." "Captain, our shields are failing," her engineer warned. "Understood. Execute." The Defiance made a final approach, taking heavy damage as it closed to point-blank range. Its weapons fired in a concentrated barrage that finally penetrated the command ship's defenses, striking the coordination node directly. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The Vaktar command ship's energy signature collapsed, and across the battlefield, the remaining enemy vessels lost cohesion. Some continued fighting with reduced effectiveness, while others began uncoordinated retreat maneuvers. The combined human-Xylar forces pressed their advantage, methodically eliminating or driving off the remaining Vaktar ships until none remained in the system. The victory came at heavy cost. 3 Xylar vessels had been destroyed, and the rest, including the Vigilance, had sustained significant damage. The Defiance itself was barely operational, with hull breaches on multiple decks and critical systems failing. In the aftermath, emergency repairs took priority. Xylar engineering teams, with Admiral Kalen's explicit permission, transferred to the Defiance to assist with critical systems. Human technical experts, after initial hesitation from Rostova, reciprocated by helping repair Xylar vessels. This practical cooperation evolved organically as the immediate crisis passed. Crews worked alongside each other, communication barriers falling as they focused on shared technical challenges. Cultural differences remained, but the foundation of mutual respect had been established through shared sacrifice. 2 days later, with basic systems restored across both fleets, Kalen and Rostova met again on the bridge of the Defiance. The human captain seemed different, still cautious, but the reflexive hostility had faded. "My superiors are processing this development," she told him. "Centuries of isolation aren't easily set aside." "The Alliance will have similar adjustments," Kalen acknowledged. "Your presence and the Vaktar threat changes our understanding of this region significantly." "They'll be back," Rostova said grimly. "What we destroyed here was a fraction of their capability. The war isn't over. It's just beginning again." The implication hung between them. The potential for continued cooperation against a common enemy. Neither was authorized to propose a formal alliance, but both recognized the strategic logic. "Your dedication to protecting your people is admirable, Captain," Kalen said carefully. "The Alliance shares that priority for its citizens. Perhaps there are ways we can respect each other's security concerns while exploring common interests." Rostova almost smiled. "Diplomatic language, Admiral. But yes, perhaps." They stood together, looking at the tactical display showing the vast expanse of the Dark Rim, a region that had seemed empty days ago, but now represented both danger and possibility. "We found each other in the darkness," Kalen observed. "Perhaps that's appropriate. Or inevitable," Rostova countered. "Space is vast, but not infinite, especially when you're running from the same enemy." The future remained uncertain. The human settlements would stay hidden for now, their exact location known only to Rostova and her crew. The Alliance would process the revelation of both human survival and the Vaktar threat according to their methodical protocols. But something fundamental had changed in the Dark Rim. 2 civilizations that had developed in isolation had found each other through conflict, formed a bond through sacrifice, and now faced a common future, uncertain and dangerous, but no longer alone. As repair crews worked around them, Kalen and Rostova continued their tentative planning, neither fully trusting, but both recognizing the potential of their unexpected alliance. The darkness of space had yielded an unexpected light, the promise of cooperation between species that had thought themselves alone in their struggles. From the ashes of battle in the Dark Rim, A new alliance had been born. Whether it would flourish or falter remained to be seen, but the first step had been taken. Humans and the Xylar Alliance had discovered each other, and together they would face whatever emerged from the depths of space.